an amazing turnout. And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us for this journey tonight and to honor Emily and her family and her stories. I want to welcome an honored guest, Emily's father, Tom Stacy, who is here tonight. You also worked for many years at this institution, so we welcome you back. I'm Julia Devine, and I am a lecturer in the theater department and also co-creator and director of Kasennisaks. I'm looking for a name. Before we begin, I'd like to do a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Mohawk people, the keepers of the eastern door. We honor the original caretakers of this and surrounding lands and offer respect to the Haudenosaunee who are still here. We are settlers on their land, and we strive to be accountable by remembering this history and cultivating respect in our relationships with our Indigenous neighbors and the land. I want to give a shout out to the SUNY Plattsburgh Theater Department for partnering with us on this event, and the Truth, Racial Healing and Transformation Campus Center for your support. And they will be hosting a Q&A after this event, which I hope you will all stay for. I also want to give a special thanks to Emily. Emily and I met about 2 years ago in the Giagenta Plattsburgh Art Project. Now, Giagenta is the Mohawk word for Plattsburgh, which means where one scoops water. And it's a group of Native and non-Native people working together to spread awareness of Native American culture. And one of the projects we did is that we commissioned a group of sculptures by the Mohawk artist Natasha Smoke Santiago of the creation story. There's a turtle sculpture, Sky Woman, and Three Sisters, which are at Peace Point Park in the marina in Plattsburgh, which I encourage you all to see. And so Emily and I became friends, and Emily has lots of stories, and we came up with this project and decided to apply for a grant, and here we are. Emily has never done theater before. She graduated with her BA in criminal justice from SUNY Plattsburgh. So this is very new, and I ask for all of you to give her grace tonight, because this is not an easy thing to do for any of us, even those of us who are in theater. And I just want to thank her for her hard work and her bravery. Yes, please turn off all your cell phones, anything that makes sound. Also, audience etiquette, especially for our students in the audience. Please do not scroll on your phone during the show, because that is very distracting to our audience members. In the case of an emergency, please listen to our ushers and follow their directions. And we have exits over there where we have the exit. And yes, before we begin, Emily asked me to give a Thanksgiving address. And this hangs outside our front home, actually, outside our door. So this is going to involve a little bit of participation from all of you. So when I go like this, can you all say, greetings and thanks?
Greetings and thanks.
Okay, let's do it one more time.
Greetings and thanks.
Yes, wonderful. Greetings and thanks to each other as people, to the earth, mother of all.
Greetings and thanks.
To all the waters, waterfalls, and rain, rivers and oceans.
Greetings and thanks.
To all the fish life.
Greetings and thanks.
The grains and greens, beans and berries. As one, we send thanks to food plants, medicine herbs of the world and their keepers.
Greetings and thanks.
To all animals and their teachings.
Greetings and thanks.
The trees for shelter and shade, fruit and beauty.
Greetings and thanks.
To all birds, large and small.
Greetings and thanks.
And from the four directions, the four winds, thank you for purifying the air we breathe and giving us strength.
Greetings and thanks.
The thunderers, our grandfathers in the sky, we hear your voices.
Greetings and thanks.
And now the sun, for the light of a new day and all the fires of life.
Greetings and thanks.
To our oldest grandmother, the moon, leader of women all over the world, and the stars for their mystery, beauty, and guidance.
Greetings and thanks.
To our teachers from all times, reminding us of how to live in harmony.
Greetings and thanks.
And for all the gifts of creation, for all the love around us,
Greetings and thanks.
and for that which is forgotten, we remember. We end our words. Now our minds are one. Enjoy.
I have arrived. My name is Kasennisaks, I'd like to take a second to personally welcome you to tonight's event. And I'd like to thank everybody who was involved in making this possible. Non-theater. But I'm going to try, and I have really great supporters. So tonight I'm going to like to actually take a second and thank my dad for being here too. Today we're going to discuss some things regarding mitochondrial DNA, cellular DNA, intergenerational trauma, residential schools, murdered and missing Indigenous women. But before we get into that, I'd like for all of us to call upon our ancestors, because tonight's events, as we travel together upon this journey, there are going to be some trying times. Some people may relate to this, some people may not. And so I have tooled myself with an oral teaching and tradition called the Onagashoni creation story. The Onagashoni creation story starts with a woman by the name of Sky Woman, and she falls from the sky. When she falls from the sky, she's pregnant. She was able to grab some seeds as she fell through the sky. Some geese came upon, out of nowhere, grabbed her, placed her on the turtle's back. She didn't have anything, she was in a new world. So the sea creatures, they came around. Many of them tried to help her get a little bit of dirt. Many were unsuccessful. There was one. We gave thanks to the muskrat. he was able to go to the depths of the sea and grab some dirt. She took that dirt and she danced. And she danced and she danced until we have what we now call Mother Earth. She was able to have a tree grow. It was the white pine, which you have with you now. So the significance of the rock is the dirt that forms and then breaks down and reforms again. The significance of the pine is the tree of peace. So as we go through this journey together, unified, sometimes we have to go back to the beginning in order to continue our journey. So that's what we're going to do. So I ask that everybody, again, call upon their ancestors to help them guide them through this evening. And to show more unification, I'm inviting 3 women to come up with me on stage to drum. Do I have any volunteers? Yes? Yes, and yes. Okay. You can come to this door and I'll let you in. So we'll stand in a semicircle. We'll scooch over. It's important to note that the drum is made out of a life. We do not beat the drum as it's sacred. We thank it for its life. You can pick up one. You want to get, okay. Oh, I probably should mention one other thing too. When you drum, at first our rhythms are off, but then eventually they become as one, and they're representative of our heart rhythm.
Hey,
So before I can tell you the story of my life, I have to tell you the story of my ancestors. I will begin with my father. I remember when I was about 7 or 8 years old, I was so frustrated one day with my dad. And I said, "Dad, I need you to help me with my homework. Why do you only help me with my math, but you won't help me with my essays?" I said, "Dad, come on, I need you to help me. Ask your mother." "Okay," I said, "Mom's not here right now." So another time I asked my dad, same thing. I said, "Dad, I need you to help me with my homework." He finally tells me why it is that he can't help me with my homework. My father cannot read and write. He's illiterate. And the first thing that would cross my mind is, what kind of school wouldn't teach a student or a child to learn how to read and write? That's not the kind of school that I go to. I don't understand this. So I remember another time I had come home, and I remember these kids talking in school. "Oh, I went over to my Nana's and Papa's house, and I went to my grandmother's and my grandpa's, and we had such a wonderful time." Okay, where's my mom's parents? I've never seen them. So I came home. I was determined. I'm going to find out where my mother's parents are today, because I've asked this before. My mother didn't want to tell me. And in hindsight, I feel bad about this. My mother finally told me when I was 6 years old. She sat me down after school and she said to me, "I'm going to tell you what happened to my parents, and we are never to discuss this again. Don't bring it up. I don't want to talk about this again." My mother told me that my grandfather died a tragic death when she was 3 years old. My grandmother died a month before my mother's 14th birthday. As a matter of fact, my mom said that she and her sisters had come home that day after going to church, and their mother was lying dead in the bed. That was it. Apparently she had a brain aneurysm or something, not really sure. It's natural causes, it was the early 70s. So I felt bad that I was so determined to ask my mom about where her parents were, but I felt excluded in school, like maybe they just didn't want to tell me. I just didn't know. But as children, sometimes we don't understand. We just understand what our peers are saying and what they're doing, and we just want to be included. But we don't understand that there's this big, complicated world out there, and things are a little bit different. As I get older, my dad mentions to me about this German instructor. My dad said this German instructor was mean, foul, just terrible person. It was not in the purview of the Canadian government, the Catholic Church, or the United States government to educate Native American children. As a matter of fact, it was a form of genocide and ethnic cleansing. things that I learned later in life. What I know from what my father tells me is that he and his brothers were in St. Anvar's Institute, which is located in Quebec, western of Kanesnisaks, which is a reservation of where my dad is from. The stories, and my father, I should mention too, my father was not the first generation in his family, in our family, to be in a residential school. My grandmother Cecilia was in one too. She was in a Spanish school. My father said that one time he had worked really hard to go see his brothers. And when it was time for him to go see his brothers, he had asked the instructors, where are my brothers? I want to go see my brother Eugene and my brother Junior. So they said, okay, Thomas, we'll bring you out into the yard. I never understood the quarreling and the bickering. My father used to call my Uncle Eugene a pig. He said, what are you doing, pig? Never understood that. I wasn't allowed to talk to my sisters like that or anybody else. What I discovered was it was more of like a role playing. They were not allowed to love each other or show any type of closeness or relationship towards each other, because that means that they were in opposition of the teachings of the residential schools. I won't learn this until much later. When my father went to go see his brothers, he's walking down the yard where the playground was, sees these two little boys tied up to a tree, butt naked, being beaten, to the point where they were bleeding. Their skin was raw. My father didn't think that those were his brothers, but they were. All my father could do was stand there and watch, being the big brother. That caused some animosity towards my father and his brothers. Something interesting will happen in March of 2017. Eugene is put on life support. We're called, we need to immediately get up to Canada so my dad can say goodbye to Eugene. My father goes into the room. He puts his hands on Eugene's chest. And he says, it's okay, the pain is gone. I'm here. I was really surprised. One tear fell from my Uncle Eugene's face. He said, go be with Mom and Dad. I've got this. Everything's okay. That was it. Eugene passed away. What I found really was interesting as I'm standing there watching this, all the years, the 35 years or so that I watched my father fight with Eugene, in the end, their spirits were not broken, even though everything had been tried to break them. And they are survivors despite what happened. So, if that is not the first traumatic event, there's going to be another one. There was another one. This is my Aunt Juanita. It's my Aunt Donna, my cousin Chanel, my mother, me, my Aunt Joyce, her two daughters, my cousin Joyetta, my cousin Adira, and my Aunt Santora. when we go and we make decisions in our life, they are not decisions that solely affect us. They are decisions that affect everybody. It's an effect that's just not soul. This part is very difficult for me. Nadira was a little baby girl that was born April 24th, 1980. I was born December 14th, 1981. Nadira was my best friend. She was the first little girl to welcome me into this world. As we got older, Nadira fostered a very close relationship with my Aunt Juanita. I didn't know how close she was to my Aunt Juanita until my Aunt Juanita was murdered in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. 4 men strangled her, raped her, and threw her body over a dumpster. Her murder still has not been solved to this day. Nadira and I were sitting in Foster Phillips' funeral home, as we always had done previously. Aunt Juanita was murdered April 10th, 1995. So Nadira and I were sitting together probably around this time right now in 1995. Nadira sat here, I sat here, as we had always done before. I went and I was talking to Nadira, and Nadira said all she wanted to do was crawl in the casket with Aunt Juanita and go with her. But I said to her, who's going to sit with me? Like, we always sit together. Something in my spirit and in my mind and in my soul said that didn't sound right to me. I was about 13. So on April 30th of 2005, which is my sister Erica's birthday, we got the call that Nadira was murdered by her boyfriend. Today, the day has come for me. I went down to the Bronx to Cook's funeral home. I sat there. I couldn't cry. I was just motioning through life. I was simply existing. I wasn't living, I was just simply existing. I sat down, looking at Nadira's body, and I left an open chair. I was waiting for someone. For 3 days, I would not let anybody sit in that spot. Every single day was that way. I see Nadira's spirit, and I said to Nadira, come, sit next to me. She said, I can't, I have to go. So I got up to go follow her out, and she said, Emily, you can't come. I went, and I sat back down, and all of a sudden I realized who it was that I was waiting for. It was Nadira. And then I began to cry, because then I said again, 10 years later, who's gonna sit with me? So, my life has not always been about doom and gloom. This is probably a picture that many people are familiar with. Just so happens that the man, third from the left, is my great-grandfather, Michael Stacy, who happens to be my father's grandfather. Mohawks were sought after because we lacked fear. Mohawks do not have an element of fear of any kind. It's actually a really great trait to have. So he was an iron worker. One of the famous people in my family, I'm proud to say. That's about it for Michael Stacy. And then I'll tell you another story about when I was a 5-year-old little brat. I came home and I said, "Hey Mom, guess what? We're going ice skating at school and I've got friends. So here's the paper, I need you to sign it, and we're gonna go ice skating." She said, "Okay, Emily, when is it?" So gave her the paper. She said, "Oh no, you're not going." "What? Why?" "Oh no, your father and I agreed that what's going to happen here is you and your sisters are going to go get your names. Everything is all set up, so we're going to the longhouse. You're going to go get your names." Boy, wasn't I pissed. So I said, "Okay, fine." Not really understanding, not wanting to go, because up until this point, we weren't really allowed to talk about being Native American. My father and my mother both shared an active understanding that it was not in our best interest. We were just simply our first and last names with no race. Of course, I didn't understand when I was a kid. So anyway, so we go to the longhouse. I'm first because I'm the oldest. Okay. So there seemed to be some kind of argument going on with the clan mothers. The late Judy Swamp, who was the Wolf clan mother for the longhouse, for the Mohawk longhouse, I speak to her later about this thing, because I remember something just being off. So anyway, my sisters, they get their names, everything goes smoothly, then they circle back around to me and finally come to a consensus of Kasennisaks. I'm looking for a name. Boy, wasn't I pissed again. What kind of name? I'm 8 years old, figuring this out, writing my name, because I'm going to change my name from Emily to Kasennisaks, because I'm allowed to do that. I can do that, why not? Always pushing the buck. So I said, okay, so I don't understand. Why can't what kind of name is I'm looking for a name? Does that mean I'm going to be lost into the oblivion forever and I'm never going to come to a consensus about who I am, or do I have an identity? So just breaking down the words. So I speak to Judy Swamp. I was pregnant with my daughter, so this had to be in 2003. I sit down with her. I said, do you remember when I got my name? She said, yes, I remember. This is what happened. She said that the Seneca spirits came into the longhouse and they had a conversation. And what the conversation was, because the languages are slightly different, is that my spirit belongs to the Senecas, but my blood belongs to the Mohawks. So what does that mean? That's like, I said, okay, so here I have two choices. Got two choices, okay? Either I'm going to be good at nothing or I'm going to be good at everything. So I chose the latter. So yeah, so that was the experience with that. But I'm glad that I actually got answers, because sometimes we don't in life. But I'm determined. Yeah, so I was, there's what it is. So when I was a little girl, my sisters and I, the original three sisters of Plattsburgh, I coined that term. So, because I don't know of any other Mohawk three sisters that were born in Plattsburgh, so I'm just gonna own it. So anyway, so these are my sisters. The middle one is Avita, Dea Hawagi, and then Erica is Galihuta, and then me, Emily, Kasennisaks. So we had planned, Jake Swamp and my dad had, which is Judy's husband, who is a chief of the Longhouse, had decided that he was going to go and give us a tree, a white pine. And we were going to plant this tree. And my sisters and I were so excited, because to us it's like planting roots. And we're going back to our beginning. And this is our town, this is where we were born in, we're going to grow up here, that this is our place to be. And we're coming back home. 3 days later, somebody goes and they split that tree right down the middle. My father went to the police, he told them what happened. They said, well, it's just a tree, who cares? That was enough for me to say I never wanted to plant another tree. So I was invited to the Giagenta Plattsburgh Art Project, and I had worked with a Mohawk artist in creating something. And during our discussions at this Giagenta Plattsburgh Art Project, we talked about planting another tree. And I said, absolutely not. I'm not going to go through that again. I don't want it to be destroyed. Not that whatever it is that we create won't be destroyed, but I don't want another living thing to be destroyed like it was before. I couldn't go through that again. So then the current mayor did a proclamation declaring the city of Plattsburgh for Indigenous Peoples Day. I took that as a personal welcome and invite. I felt like it was a good step forward to be inclusive of the First Nations people, which is the American Indians that were here originally. So I felt that that was a very nice, good gesture. I went to an event back in November, and it was about climate and whatever, and a couple of people had spoken, and I was a guest speaker. This young gentleman had come up to me, and he said to me, you, is there a group that you can start, or is there something that we can do? Part of the oral tradition is that we are taught, or we teach for 7 generations. So everything we do now affects 7 generations. I told this young gentleman, being born a human being, you have an inherent responsibility and right to take care of Mother Earth. It is not just up to the Native American people. It is everybody's responsibility, not just one race, everybody's. To intensify this, I recently learned last year that in the 2020 census, in the Tri-County area, Clinton, Essex, and Franklin County, there are only a little over 4,000 Native Americans in that Tri-County. I don't necessarily agree with those numbers, give or take a couple of tens of thousands maybe, if that, maybe 10,000, maybe that's accurate, I'm not really sure, but that shows you how small of a population Native American people are. We can't do this on our own. So it's up to you guys to take this up too. So I'm going to conclude this with 2 Mohawk words. Teyohuagi and Galihota. Galihota means one who ends a message of words. Teyohuagi means 2 canoes, and you choose.
Whether you're woman or whether you're man, sometimes you got to take a stand. Just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.